What if I told you the most unhinged era of anime wasn't today? It was the one hiding in dusty VHS boxes labeled Adults Only. 10 rated R insanely brutal, cyberpunk anime from the 80s and 90s, the golden era, isn't just a cool title. It's a warning. Back then, OVAs slipped past TV rules. Studios gambled on violence. Animators pushed bodies, politics, and technology to extremes. And nobody was asking for safer content. They were asking for more. Ghost in the Shell, 1995. You don't open a golden era cyberpunk list quietly. You open it with surgical precision. 1995 delivered a film so cold and clinical that it redefined what animated violence could look like. This isn't chaos for shock. This is calculated brutality wrapped in philosophy. Major Motoko Kusanagi doesn't scream when things get violent. She calculates, she analyzes, then she dismantles. Limbs are torn from bodies in that infamous tank sequence, but it isn't presented as spectacle. It's mechanical. Bone splinters, muscle fibers strain, synthetic skin stretches past its limit. The scene feels industrial, not theatrical. And that's the genius. The violence isn't messy like late 80s OVAs. It's precise, efficient, almost corporate. This world is soaked in rain and surveillance. Governments trade secrets like currency. Human brains get hacked as easily as computers. Identity isn't stable. Memory isn't sacred. And death? Death is transactional. What makes it rated R isn't just the physical damage, it's the existential damage. The opening assassination sequence doesn't ease you in. A diplomatic figure's brain gets invaded remotely. His free will dissolves. Security forces collapse in seconds. It's fast, brutal, silent. There's a detachment to the bloodshed that feels more disturbing than screaming chaos. When the Major tears open a tank hatch with her bare hands, her own cybernetic frame rips apart in the process. Synthetic muscle snaps, arms detach. The price of victory is visible on screen. The golden era loved showing consequences. And then there's the body horror, subtle but undeniable. Puppet master victims are left hollowed, minds rewritten. Human beings become software patches. This wasn't cartoon violence. It was philosophical dissection. The city itself feels hostile. Neon signs flicker above corruption. Technology suffocates intimacy. Every alley looks like it hides a corporate conspiracy. Modern cyberpunk anime often leans flashy. This one leans inevitable. It's rated R because it respects adult intelligence. It doesn't soften its ideas. It doesn't censor its implications. It doesn't reassure you. By the time the credits roll, you're not hyped. You're unsettled. And that's exactly why it belongs at the top. Genocyber, 1994. If Ghost in the Shell is surgical, Genocyber is a sledgehammer. 1994 didn't ask for subtlety. It detonated it. This OVA doesn't gradually escalate. It begins in cruelty and accelerates from there. Psychic children become weapons. Governments hide experiments. Corporate ambition overrides morality instantly. The violence is not restrained. Heads rupture under psychic pressure. Military units are shredded mid-operation. Civilians get caught in crossfire without cinematic hero framing. And the destruction doesn't pause for reflection. Entire city blocks collapse in seconds. Buildings don't crumble gracefully. They implode under telekinetic rage. Debris rains down while the camera lingers just long enough to make you uncomfortable. This is golden era excess at maximum output. Genocyber treats humanity like collateral damage. Characters aren't protected by plot armor. Survival feels random. Authority figures lie without hesitation. The animation style amplifies the horror. Faces distort. Mechanical implants merge with flesh in grotesque transitions. The transformation sequences aren't stylized. They're punishing. You can feel the animators testing boundaries. The series shifts tone aggressively between episodes, but the brutality remains constant. It never softens its edge. It never reassures the viewer. Military mechs clash against psychic bioweapons in sequences that feel apocalyptic. Explosions don't sparkle. They obliterate. There's something deeply nihilistic here. Unlike other cyberpunk stories that explore corporate dystopia with cool detachment, Genocyber feels angry. Not stylish anger. Personal anger. It doesn't just critique technological ambition. It condemns it. And then it goes further. It suggests humanity deserves what it creates. That's why it earns the rated R label without apology. This isn't edgy marketing. This is animated devastation. The Golden Era allowed OVAs like this to exist because they weren't beholden to prime-time broadcast rules. Direct-to-video meant creative freedom, and sometimes that freedom meant carnage without compromise. Genocyber isn't polished. It's raw. It's uneven. It's overwhelming. But it captures something rare. A moment when studios were willing to gamble on intensity instead of safety. And for that alone, it stands as one of the most brutally uncompromising cyberpunk works of the 90s. Cyber City 80808, 1990. "1990 arrived with handcuffs that exploded if you stepped out of line. That's the setup. 3 criminals, reduced sentences, explosive collars locked to their throats. Do the job or lose your head. Cyberpunk doesn't get more literal than that. This OVA throws you into a future Tokyo where law enforcement outsources justice to the worst people imaginable. The city glows with neon, but beneath the lights is rot. Corporations manipulate policy. Politicians dodge accountability. Crime syndicates function like parallel governments. And the violence? It's fast and mean. Gunfights don't feel heroic. They feel desperate. Bodies collapse mid-sentence. Blood sprays without dramatic music swelling to justify it. When Sengoku pulls the trigger, it isn't romanticized. It's survival. There's a rawness to the animation that screams early 90s OVA confidence. Laser blasts scorch concrete. Cybernetic enhancements fail catastrophically. Limbs are severed without slow motion to soften the blow. The atmosphere carries more weight than the dialogue. You can practically smell the rain hitting overheated metal. Each episode escalates differently. One leans into psychological horror with rogue AI manipulation. Another dives into biotech monstrosities that tear through containment like paper. The third spirals into conspiracy layered with betrayal. The brutality isn't just physical, it's systemic. These so-called heroes are criminals forced into obedience through technological threat. The government doesn't rehabilitate them, it weaponizes them. That idea alone makes it rated R in spirit. There's something uniquely Golden Era about how blunt this series feels. It doesn't pause to explain morality. It doesn't comfort you with redemption arcs. These men aren't becoming better citizens. They're being used until they break. And sometimes, they almost do. The action choreography favors impact over spectacle. Shots land with visible force. Explosions leave smoke that lingers instead of vanishing conveniently. When a villain goes down, it isn't framed as poetic justice. It's another body in a city that doesn't care. Cyber City 80808 doesn't aim for philosophical depth, like later cyberpunk masterpieces. It aims for intensity. It delivers that intensity with attitude and grime. This was an era when direct-to-video meant no one was policing how dark you could go. The result feels rebellious. And that rebellion is exactly why it belongs here. Angel Cop, 1989.
It's a setup! Get him into the van! Quick! No!
1989 did not believe in restraint. Angel Cop begins as a counter-terrorism thriller and mutates into psychic warfare without warning. Tokyo is on edge. Economic tensions rise. Extremist factions target corporate leadership. The police respond with force that borders on authoritarian. Then the psychic assassins arrive. The shift is violent and abrupt. One moment you're watching tactical raids. The next, officers are flung across rooms by invisible pressure. Bodies slam into concrete with bone-snapping force. The brutality is not implied. It's shown, and it's harsh. The gun battles erupt in cramped corridors where bullets ricochet unpredictably. Hostages aren't shielded by narrative convenience. Collateral damage is visible. The camera doesn't flinch. The psychic confrontations escalate beyond conventional action. Minds are invaded. Pain is weaponized. Human anatomy becomes fragile under telekinetic assault. Faces distort under pressure. Blood appears suddenly and without warning. The series thrives on paranoia. Authority figures manipulate information. Political conspiracies twist motivations. Trust dissolves quickly. Angel, the central enforcer, doesn't hesitate when lethal force becomes necessary. She isn't framed as merciless, but she is undeniably uncompromising. That moral rigidity defines the tone. There's an abrasive quality to the storytelling that feels distinctly late 80s. Where dialogue cuts sharply. Ideologies clash openly. The violence mirrors the intensity of those ideological battles. Unlike more polished cyberpunk narratives, Angel Cop embraces excess. It leans into shock value at times. It isn't subtle about its political undercurrents. The Golden Era allowed projects like this to exist because controversy wasn't automatically suppressed. OVAs could take risks, they could offend, they could push, and this one absolutely pushes. The final confrontations abandon grounded realism entirely. Psychic powers escalate to near-apocalyptic levels. Structures shatter under invisible force. Human bodies withstand more punishment than seems plausible. It's messy, but it's unforgettable. Angel Cop embodies the transitional moment between grounded techno-thrillers and full-blown supernatural cyberpunk chaos. But that fusion makes it volatile, and volatility is exactly what defined this era. Wicked City, 1987.
Demon world has given me its blessing. I have been chosen.
1987 did not ease you into adulthood. Wicked City drops you straight into a shadow war between humans and demons, and it wastes absolutely no time pretending this is for kids. Skyscrapers tower over a city that looks normal at first glance, but behind office doors and nightclub curtains, something grotesque is breathing. This isn't polished cyberpunk philosophy. This is late 80s neon soaked in sweat and danger. The premise is simple on paper. Agents protect a fragile peace treaty between worlds. The execution is anything but simple. Our bodies stretch into monstrous shapes mid-conversation. Faces split open to reveal fanged horrors underneath. A seductive encounter turns predatory in seconds. The violence feels intimate. Combat doesn't unfold on battlefields. It erupts in apartments, elevators, dimly lit bars. A spider-like demon explodes through walls. Limbs are pierced. Blood splashes against Art Deco backdrops. There's something claustrophobic about it. Unlike grand dystopian destruction, this film focuses on close-range brutality. The camera stays near the impact. When blades connect, you feel the weight behind them. When a character is overpowered, the threat feels immediate and personal. The Golden Era loved this kind of risk. Studios understood that direct-to-adult animation could lean into horror without apology. Wicked City embraces sexuality and violence as intertwined forces. Desire becomes vulnerability. Attraction becomes a trap. The cyberpunk elements simmer beneath the surface. The city is modern, corporate, morally detached. Technology hums quietly while supernatural forces operate in parallel. It's not about giant mechs or collapsing skylines. It's about corruption hiding in plain sight. And then the final act escalates everything. Gunfire tears through demon flesh. Transformations become larger and more grotesque. The boundary between human and monster blurs violently. The stakes stop being diplomatic and start being existential. What makes it rated R isn't just gore, it's tone. This world feels adult in a way that's unapologetic. No moral speeches soften the ending. No comforting lesson restores innocence. Where the characters survive through grit, not destiny. Wicked City captures that specific 1987 confidence, when animators were pushing anatomy, lighting, and choreography as far as budgets would allow. It doesn't ask for mainstream approval. It demands your attention, and it earns its place in the golden era lineup by refusing to be safe. Violence Jack, 1986. 1986 didn't believe in subtle world building. Violence Jack throws you into a post-cataclysm Tokyo where civilization has collapsed and brutality rules the ruins. Skyscrapers crumble like broken teeth against a smoky sky. Law enforcement is gone. Infrastructure is a memory. What remains is raw survival. This series leans more into apocalyptic savagery than sleek cybernetic futurism. Yet its dystopian urban decay overlaps directly with Cyberpunk's DNA. Where society implodes under its own corruption, power consolidates in the hands of tyrants, humanity fractures, and the violence is relentless. Fights don't follow choreography meant to look cool. They look desperate. Weapons are improvised. Blows land with bone-crushing force. The animation doesn't shy away from the physical cost of combat. The atmosphere feels hostile from frame one. You're not watching heroes rise. You're watching a wasteland consume people. Gangs control districts with fear tactics. Weakness is punished instantly. Authority doesn't exist unless you can enforce it. Jack himself is a force rather than a traditional protagonist. Towering, silent, almost mythic, he cuts through chaos with overwhelming strength. When he intervenes, it's decisive. When he confronts villains, it's explosive. Where the golden era allowed OVAs like this to exist without broadcast filters, the result is extreme. Buildings burn while civilians scatter. Confrontations escalate into massacres. Scenes linger longer than comfortable. The bleakness isn't decorative, it's foundational. Cyberpunk has always carried anti-authority undertones. Violence Jack removes authority entirely and examines what fills the vacuum. It's not optimism, it's cruelty. Yet beneath the savagery lies commentary about power and exploitation. Those who seize control replicate the same oppressive systems that collapsed the old world. Technology may be limited compared to other entries, but the dystopian spirit is unmistakable. This is urban ruin stripped of neon glamour. No corporate polish, no sleek AI philosophy. Just dust, blood, and desperation. That Violence Jack earns its rated R status through intensity that borders on overwhelming. It doesn't flirt with brutality, it commits to it. And in doing so, it reflects the unfiltered ambition of 1986, a time when adult animation could push extremes without corporate caution tapes wrapped around it. Appleseed, 1988.
¡Habla la policía! No hemos podido traer el camión que pedíais, pero podemos garantizaros vuestra seguridad hasta el aeropuerto.
1988 wasn't done redefining cyberpunk. Appleseed approaches brutality from a different angle. Instead of apocalyptic wastelands or psychic implosions, it presents a seemingly perfect city called Olympus. A utopia governed by advanced technology and engineered humans. The illusion cracks quickly. Dunan Knute enters this pristine metropolis expecting stability. What she discovers is control disguised as harmony. Bioengineered beings called bioroids handle administration. Artificial intelligence regulates systems. Human autonomy feels quietly diminished. And when political tension erupts, it erupts violently. Gunfights tear through sleek corridors. The tactical units clash in close quarters. High-caliber weapons puncture armor with devastating force. Mechs deploy into urban streets with thunderous presence. The violence contrasts sharply with the city's polished aesthetic. Olympus looks clean. Conflict stains it immediately. Briareos, the cyborg partner, embodies cybernetic augmentation taken to its limit. His body is mostly machine. His humanity survives through memory and loyalty. When he enters combat, it's efficient and devastating. Appleseed doesn't rely on grotesque body horror like other Golden Era entries. Instead, it focuses on militarized precision. Operations are strategic. Attacks are coordinated. Casualties still feel heavy. There's a persistent undercurrent of distrust. Who truly governs this city? Are humans steering technology, or has technology quietly assumed command? And the political intrigue deepens as factions attempt coups to destabilize Olympus. Explosions tear through infrastructure. Defensive systems activate. Citizens scatter. The OVA format allows the film to lean into mature themes without compromise. Ethical debates unfold alongside firefights. Characters question whether engineered peace is worth surrendered freedom. This is rated R, not because it revels in gore, but because it treats its audience like adults capable of processing moral complexity and battlefield consequences. The Golden Era thrived on this kind of layered storytelling. High-tech weaponry collides with philosophical tension. Urban skylines frame ideological battles. Animation quality pushes detail in armor design, mechanical movement, and environmental destruction. Appleseed feels like a bridge between raw 80s excess and the more contemplative cyberpunk that would dominate the mid-90s. It doesn't scream, it asserts. And in doing so, it secures its place among the most intense cyberpunk works of the era. A Police Files, 1990. 1990 didn't just give us criminals with bomb collars, it also gave us cops hunting machines that look human until they tear you apart. A Police Files exists inside the same universe as Bubblegum Crisis, but this spin-off strips away glamour and leaves something colder. Mega Tokyo is a vertical maze of corporate towers and industrial underbellies. Technology isn't just advancing, it's mutating. Androids called boomers are built to serve, entertain, protect, manufacture, until they malfunction. And when they malfunction, it's catastrophic. And this series opens with incidents that don't feel like sci-fi fantasy. They feel like workplace disasters turned monstrous. A construction site becomes a bloodbath when heavy machinery fuses with rogue AI behavior. Steel beams swing unpredictably. Workers scramble. Sirens wail too late. The violence is abrupt. Boomers don't announce their rebellion with speeches. They snap. Hydraulic limbs crush concrete. Synthetic skin peels back to reveal metal frameworks underneath. Civilians caught in proximity pay the price immediately. The AD police are not superheroes. They're underfunded, overwhelmed officers tasked with containing technological nightmares. Their armor helps, their weapons help, but nothing guarantees survival. Gunfire slams into metallic torsos. Sparks erupt instead of blood. And then a boomer retaliates with strength no human can match. Walls shatter, vehicles flip. Flesh meets alloy with disastrous results. There's a heavy procedural tone here. Investigations unfold through dimly lit interrogation rooms and corporate boardrooms that deflect responsibility. Executives distance themselves from malfunction reports. Liability becomes a negotiation rather than a moral question. That's where the cyberpunk edge sharpens. The brutality isn't random, it's systemic. Corporations prioritize production schedules over safety. The police respond to crises caused by the same institutions funding their equipment. A Police Files doesn't rely on giant apocalyptic events. It thrives on contained chaos. One rogue machine can devastate a district. One oversight can trigger a massacre. Would the Golden Era allowed stories like this to linger in moral gray zones? There's no clear villain twirling a mustache. There's negligence, there's greed, there's exhaustion. The officers carry psychological scars. Partners argue. Decisions haunt them. When they neutralize a boomer, relief mixes with dread because they know another one will appear. The rated R energy comes from impact and implication. When a machine crushes a human body, the camera doesn't pretend it's painless. When a firefight tears through a shopping district, the aftermath isn't tidy. This is industrial horror dressed as law enforcement drama. No philosophical monologues about identity. No grand psychic explosions. Just a city choking on its own technological ambition. And that grounded, the grinding tension is exactly why AD Police Files earns its spot in this golden era lineup. So here's the truth. The golden era didn't ask permission. The 80s and 90s animated things most studios today wouldn't even pitch. Corporations were villains, governments were corrupt, technology was terrifying, bodies broke, cities burned, and nobody added a safety disclaimer. 10 rated R, insanely brutal cyberpunk anime from the 80s and 90s, the golden era, isn't nostalgia bait. It's proof that anime once gambled big and hit harder. And honestly, part of us still misses that risk.